how can I improve my intuition?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I'll tell you a story about Ramana Maharshi. So Ramana Maharshi was an Indian sage who many people would travel across the world to visit. And he had, in as much as we can talk about him as being an individual, obviously it's at the absolute level, that's not true, but the body mind called Ramana Maharshi was aware that he was not a body mind. So he had seen, and he knew that any advice that he could give was ultimately not meaningless, but any course of action was beyond his control, and that there's no real step to get to yourself. You can't take a step towards yourself because you are yourself. So his answer to any question would always, theoretically, should always have been silence, because there's nothing he could say, because there's nothing that needs to happen, and everybody is already their true self. They just are in the illusion that they're not. However, so his answer all the time should have been silence. However, he answered questions in a way that to the belief or the understanding of the individual questioner, not to his belief or understanding. So to some people, he would say, well, there's nothing you must do because you are already this. There is no doer. But to somebody who is really deeply ingrained and connected with the body mind, he would say, well, maybe there is a course of action you can take. But his deeper understanding is that really there wasn't an action. But what he would also say is he would never prescribe anything other than what people were already doing. So if they came to him and they said, look, I'm meditating, should I chant instead? He would say, well, no, if you've been called to meditate, then keep doing that. And if somebody came to him and said, I'm not meditating, but now I've heard what you've said and I feel that I'll probably progress quicker if I meditate, should I do that? And he would say, no, if just the path you're on is perfect. The path you're already on is perfect. So he would never prescribe anything counter to the path people were already on. So intuition, of course, must come from you, must come from what you call I. It strengthens as your knowledge of truth expands or deepens. Your intuition grows along with it. It's like it's in tandem almost, because what you know to be true through experience guides your intuition. So if you're still completely in the dream, I'm a separate person, I can do whatever I want and I control the outcomes, and when this body mind dies, I'm dead and that's it, then you've not had a glimpse of your true nature at that point, your true reality. So your sense of intuition is kind of misguided because it doesn't have a compass at that point. But as your spiritual journey progresses, you have various insights, or you can call them awakenings or glimpses, which then shape that compass, that strengthen that direction giving power of the compass of truth, right? Because you have more evidence. So initially, it's difficult initially because much of what people feel they know about truth is only mental. It's not experiential. And what ends up happening is they say, well, like you say, is this intuition or not? Because it's not based on experience. It's based on something they've heard or read. So they can't relate it to their sense of I. They don't really feel they have ownership of that because it's been a third party information that's come in. When you've had a glimpse and when you've tasted that sense of not being separate, or that there's something beyond body or beyond mind, nobody can take that away from you, and nobody needs to teach you that. No teaching on that aspect that you glimpsed will ever get close to your experience of it. So your intuition would then, at that point, be guided by that particular experience. Does this take me closer to, or is it more in line with what I know to be true? Or is it taking me further away from what I know to be true? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I have another question. I guess on the road, we are gonna try and error and see if that's close to what we know or not. I guess there is gonna be try and error.
Yeah. There's definitely trial and error. The bigger lesson out of all of this, because what I found is you would get pulled in different directions. You would think, okay, I'm being. Sometimes it's clear, right? Sometimes it's very obvious. You're being called to do something through kind of truth. It feels pure. You almost feels like you didn't decide it. There's no resistance whatsoever. There's not a moment's thought, and it just happens. So it's very clear in that way. And then on the other end of the scale, there's times when you something pops up. It's usually a thought, right? That you should do this, or let's go do this, or whatever. And it's the opposite. It's the other end of the spectrum. And you're like, no, that's just a thought. That's not, I'm not going to take action on that. I'll watch that just fade away. And obviously there's no issue with either of those. But when it's somewhere in the middle, then yeah, there needs to be, as you say, that trial and error. You just need to make a judgment. But ultimately, when you do this enough times, what you see is the awareness that was present when the thought came, and the awareness of when a decision was made, and the awareness after the action was taken, no matter what the decision, thought, or action were, regardless of the flavor or nature of any of those, the awareness is constant throughout all of it. So that's like the bigger, like the zooming out lesson of it. Initially, it feels that you can do so-called right things and wrong things, but ultimately, none of it is. You're not doing any of it. Just like we demonstrated in the meditation. Anything that occurs is just occurring. For a time, it feels like, I think you'd mentioned before, like there's a filtering, like you filter the thoughts. Oh, that's good, that's bad, oh, that's crazy, that's not. that leads to an action. For a time, it feels like that. And there is that trial and error where sometimes you feel you've making a wrong turn. But all of that, you can boil it all down to thoughts, right? Because it's a thought initially. The decision is a thought, and then you make a judgment on the action afterwards. Oh, that was good. But that's just a thought saying it was good. Oh, that was bad. I shouldn't have done that. That's just a thought. So it's just thoughts building on thoughts on thoughts on thoughts. Whereas rather than getting stuck in the weeds down here with all of this cycle of thought on thought on thought, is just to observe and just see how it just happens, whether it's perceived as right or wrong. But naturally, what I found is naturally there just starts to, a distance starts to appear between, like, let me give this example, right? So initially you feel you're in here, right? Body, mind, I'm doing this. This is me. I'm in here. I am this. Then you have this sense that you're like somewhere in here, like you're maybe back here in the brain, like you're a little thing, something you can't even put, you don't even know what you are, but you're in this, like you're operating it like a machine. So that's a second layer of like separation or distance, not separation, distance. Then beyond that, you kind of feel like you're not this at all. You're not this bag of bones and whatever. You almost feel like you're a puppet. You pulling the strings. You're outside of it. And then eventually the strings just get cut. And you're just the watcher. But in all of those phases, nothing changes with what this thing does. It's literally just how awareness is relating to the thoughts about this. So you go from feeling you are this to then feeling you are controlling this to then feeling maybe you're separate to it but somehow still responsible, to eventually it's just, as in the meditation, it's just you're just observing everything as it unfolds. And it's not that anything causes that. It's not that a particular decision or choosing right or wrong or pure things or impure things. It's the other way around. Like this unfolding then affects the so-called decisions and the so-called thoughts, because you're not building on them anymore, because you realize you're not controlling them. You know, you're not following them. You're not diving in there and getting involved in the storm of all that. So it's not that stopping that or choosing the right path or following intuition or messing up and going the wrong way. That doesn't get you out of this. You are just on a path to be gotten out of this, no matter what you do or don't do. And over time, that the thoughts just lessen, and the connection to those thoughts of, firstly, I'm doing this, then I'm not doing this, but look at how crazy it is, I need to do something, to then, well, I can't do anything, so let's just watch it and it's all fine.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And the meditation was beautiful as well. You said there is no line between meditation and life. It gets blurred. That was a good perspective for me. And thank you for the answer.
You're welcome. You're welcome.